Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of the Don Lemon Show, Lemon Live at 5. You're seeing a bunch of people on our screen. You're also looking at the Leah Core Center at Temple University in Philadelphia, and you're looking at former Senator Bob Casey was there on stage. They're saying some 10,000 people, if not more, are filling this stadium in Philadelphia, and there are folks who are waiting outside who cannot get in. So much for owning the whole crowd size thing. I think we can safely say that the Democrats have caught up, if not surpassed, the former Republican candidate in crowd size. There you see the folks who are up on the screen there. You're looking at the bottom of your screen. I have to introduce him first because he is, we can say, legendary. Also a political star. Governor Deval Patrick, who was a two-term governor of the great state of Massachusetts. He is now the David R. Gergen Professor of the Practice of Public Leadership at Harvard's Kennedy School. We're honored to have him. Also, Mr. Chris, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here, Governor. Also, Chris Cillizza is here. He's a veteran political commentator, a former CNN colleague of mine. He's also the founder of the So What Substack newsletter and YouTube channel, a very popular YouTube channel. Monique
Don,
Presley,
why do I have to get introduced after the governor, man? That just makes me sound bad.
It's really true.
You know, it's
Chris,
brutal.
If you can become an elected official of anything, I'll be glad to introduce you. First, you're lucky that you were introduced second, okay? Because
I was introduced at all.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, what's his name is here? Chris Cillizza, as people call you, or Chris. Wait a minute, what do they call you? Chris Cillizza or Chris? They get you mixed up with Ryan Lizza, right? So
yes, they do.
Yeah, don't I know that?
I get it.
Because I've done that before. Hi, Monique Presley, friend of the show, a legal analyst, a political commentator, the host of the Make It Make Sense with Monique show, airing weekdays live at noon Eastern on Instagram, rebroadcast on YouTube. Again, a friend of the show and a friend of mine. Last but certainly not least, an elected official who I should have introduced before, at least, Chris Cillizza. And that is Mr. Bobby Champion. I saved him last for a reason, because there's a very special reason that he is here. He's a president of the Minnesota State Senate, he will soon be the lieutenant governor of Minnesota, given Harris's pick of Tim Walz. But there's something that has to be done first. Senator, welcome. Explain what has to be done before you officially become lieutenant governor.
Well, first of all, let me just say thank you so much for having me on, especially with this great panel. The first thing that has to happen is for us as citizens to get out and vote and elect this wonderful winning ticket. Once that is complete in November, by operation of our succession laws, once that governorship is vacated, our lieutenant governor, who is Peggy Flanagan, will ascend to be governor, and then I, being the president of the Senate, and not to mention the first Black president of the Senate, will become the first Black lieutenant governor. And by the way, Peggy Flanagan will also become the first Native American woman to be governor of the great state of Minnesota. So that's what needs to happen. And thank you so much again for having me.
And it's interesting that Chris Cillizza wanted to be introduced before all of that. Tells you something right there.
No,
about
I'm
what
misquoted. I just don't want to follow Governor Patrick because his resume is too impressive. Two-term governor of a state, and then you're like, Chris Cillizza, yeah, and then you still get CNN, whatever.
Yeah, well, we all saw it with our own eyes and we heard it with our own ears. This is what we have a lot to discuss. We're going to hear from a lot of people, as you're hearing now from the folks who are at the Leah Core Center, and we're waiting with this raucous crowd. We're waiting for the new Harris-Walz team. We're going to hear from the Vice President Kamala Harris, her calling Governor Tim Walz. We're going to hear from Walz's first campaign ad. Also, we're going to talk about his ideological what he is, where his stamp on the Senate and also on the governor. And also we're going to hear from, here's Walz's congressional ad. And then Nancy Pelosi, who is very happy about this pick, we'll hear from her, as well as we're going to go live to the Leah Core Center and we're going to listen in on the speeches. So these are some facts for you guys. First of all, Governor, how are you doing? What are you thinking about all this?
I am over the moon excited for a bunch of reasons. You know, I was governor of Massachusetts, as you mentioned, but I grew up in Chicago, so I have a soft spot for Midwesterners. And I think Midwesterners often feel in presidential elections unseen and unheard. So I love the idea that that fills a gap, if you will, in the ticket. I also think that that the vice presidential candidate should be chosen, and I think in this case was chosen to kind of complement the skill set and strengths of our presidential nominee, Kamala Harris. I think he has executive skills that are different from hers. He's had experience creating and developing bipartisan relationships that are inside government and outside government, because more and more of, I think, the solutions to the things that ail us will be cross-sector in nature. He has a really strong legislative and executive record that favors the kinds of things that we want to have happen, and frankly, that a majority of Americans want to have happen at the national level. So I'm really excited about the ticket. I think Kamala Harris has just lit a fire under not just the party but Americans everywhere. And I think the big challenge for all of us now is to convert that enthusiasm into organization and into votes.
Senator Bobby Champion, how do you feel about this? How are folks in your state feeling as well?
Well, let me first of all say that we are pleased that the lieutenant governor, that the vice president selected Governor Walz as the VP. From our vantage point, we understand that there's a list of great people to pick from, and that just shows how robust our bench is. But when you think in terms of this governor, I've had a chance to see him from the very beginning, because I first got elected in 2008 when Obama got elected, and I was in the House of Representatives. And then in 2012 is when I went to the Senate. That's when Obama also sought re-election. And then I got a chance to see Governor Walz. And I watched him for many years and seen just the tremendous work that he did and his ability to bring people together, but also to solve problems and improve lives from policies like, for example, the PRO Act, protecting, reproductive rights and freedoms, to 100% clean energy, as well as housing and education. We made the largest investment around education in quite some time, not to mention the fact that we also saw that he implemented a child tax credit, which cut the child poverty rate by 1/3. But if you even want to think in terms of lifting up the African-American community, he signed into law restorative vote, with 55,000 folks from the great state of Minnesota who originally couldn't vote. Now they are allowed to vote. Juneteenth as a state holiday. The Crown Act, for an example. The African-American Family Preservation Act. An office for murdered Black girls and women. And he also did major investments, along with the work that I do as chair of the Jobs Committee, because not only am I president, but I'm chair of the Jobs Committee, where we made an investment in communities of color across the state of Minnesota of over $100 million. And that's just to, think about how we also not want to just think about being productive in Minnesota, but being futuristic and taking advantage of the federal CHIPS Act, where the federal government put forth $52 billion. So the rest of the country is going to have an opportunity to see what we've been celebrating here in the great state of Minnesota. And we couldn't be more proud and more excited about the fact that the vice president put forth our governor as the vice president candidate.
As we're looking, thank you for that, State Senator Bobby Champion, soon to be, if everything goes right, and we believe that it will, the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota. We're looking at live pictures from Philadelphia, where this rally is about to be held in just moments, and we're going to carry it for you live here on the Don Lemon Show channel. Look at that. I mean, they've got a runway. This is very organized, and it's beautifully done. And this takes some effort, and it takes some dough to do something like this. I have a great question for producers. If you can find out while we're on the air, I don't know the answer to this, but people in the chat are asking, what are those wristbands they have on? They're very fancy, and they seem to be glowing. So we want to figure out, I think they're probably going to turn the lights off or something, and we're going to get to see exactly what it is. But do some research for me, producers. I would love to know. Okay, so Monique, I'm saving you last for a reason, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I want to hear from Chris Cillizza. Chris, what a turn of events, because Tim Walz was a long shot. People weren't even speaking about him maybe even a week ago, and all of a sudden somebody comes up with weird and then boom, skips the front of the line and jumps in front of everyone and is now the VP pick, nominee pick.
I put him on a list about 10 days ago and said, like, look, I think he's a dark horse. I don't think he's going to get it, but like, he's, pretty appealing resume, raised in a small town, military. He was a teacher. He's a football coach. He served in Congress. He's a governor, but like, probably they're not going to pick him. And people would respond in the comment section, what are you thinking? They're never going to pick Tim Walz. No one knows who he is. Man, politics works in strange ways, number one, and it is a momentum-driven thing. Tim Walz, from Republicans are weird to the vice presidential nomination, is not even 2 weeks. I think that comment and the way it went viral and the way that it cut through against Donald Trump in a way that a lot of Democrats have really struggled to do, gave people a chance to say, well, wait a minute, let's look at this guy. And the more they looked, and this is obviously true of Vice President Harris, the more they looked, the more they liked. I will say I was surprised. I still thought that Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, made the most sense just purely for electoral politics reasons, that Pennsylvania is that important. But it is a remarkable story, because if you ask people to make a list of the 10 people Kamala Harris might pick the day as vice president, the day after Joe Biden dropped his presidency or dropped his candidacy, man, I'd be hard pressed to say 5% of people would have had Tim Walz in the top 10, which is yet more proof that we don't know all that much.
Okay. And we're going to talk, I want to talk all about rhetoric versus facts. We're going to get into that because people are saying, he is so far to the left. He's, calling him a member of the squad. They're happy. But if you actually look at his record, it doesn't actually show that. It shows him as remarkably centrist. So hello, Monique Presley. Oh, hello. But Monique, who do we have? We have someone else joining us here. So I just want to make sure that I'll get that in a second. But Monique, listen. I'm just going to be honest with you, bolder and more honest than I could be on cable news. You're a Black woman. This is amazing for the country, but especially for Black women. And talk to me about this. As you said, you and I were talking earlier, and what did you say? You said Black women don't like forced mistakes. What did you say in your own words?
Unforced errors.
Yeah.
We don't do unforced errors. It's too long, too hard to get anywhere. And you better believe the vice president understands that better than pretty much anybody in the world right now. She has her own lived experience of being successful at getting places and knows how to not fumble the ball. And so she had her own criteria. And I don't doubt at all that she listened to everything from everyone and read every bit of the research and heard all of the voices and then closed the book and knew it was up to her to make a decision. And she has, and it's being well received for a reason. Everybody had their picks. And I see a lot of people on X saying, I really didn't feel like fighting about Shapiro for the next 90 days. I'm one of those people. I really liked him too, but I didn't feel like being in the fights I was going to have to be in to make it work. I was just going to be freaking exhausted.
What fight are you talking about?
Well, because there was a faction of the party that believed that there were issues with him that did not exist with other potential candidates with respect to the war in Gaza and with respect to support for Israel. There are factors in the party that had issues with his prior stance on BDS and other things. And so they were making noise. And then there were rumblings from other parts of the party that felt like he was going to be kind of too much of an attention grabber for himself and not really up for the task of being the second for that long. And I don't think necessarily that any of that stuff was true. I have really great respect for him, for the job he's done, for his record. And as you said on my show, he's easy on the eyes. There's just nothing to complain about there. But all of those things were things that I was seeing from the people with significant followings who were making rumblings that we were going to have to find a way to squash all the beefs. And no, I didn't feel like doing that with my time. But back to your original point, as a Black woman, man, I'm looking at that runway. I'm looking at that sign. I'm looking at Harris and with Walz under it. And I can't think about it too hard, Don, because then I'm more emotional than I need to be to have my words. But
No, you can go. You can be emotional. Come on, I cried when when certain things happened on CNN. People used to call me a baby. I did not care. But
yes. Well, I'm not gonna do the Van Jones ugly cry right now.
That's shame.
Because if I find it personally annoying, but I do have those tears, and rightfully so. And I will find some other point probably this day to do that. But I'm still, as many of us are, I've been on the Women with Black Women calls for 4 years now. And I know that when we started the call, the oldest on the call was almost 90. And that's Mama Hazel Duke. She's 92 now. And we are so past my granny and my papa's wildest dreams when they would lay out their clothes the night before to go down to Alamo Elementary School to go vote in Galveston, Texas, home in Juneteenth. And I'm watching this, and it is something to behold. And there's lots of political things for us to talk about, and we should, but it's still quite the moment.
Yeah.
Well, great. I wanted you to have that moment. I agree. Who is that? Is that Governor Patrick Hussein?
It was. I know you have another guest you haven't gotten to yet, but I just want to lift up what Monique is saying, the sense of history that we get to make, not just that the candidate makes, but that all of us get to make, and how important that is in affirming our aspirations about this country. I also think, Chris said something really interesting to me about how Governor Walz wasn't on the list he would have made. One of the things I like about this choice, one of many, is that this was not clearly about name recognition alone, right? It was really about addressing what is in fact true. That is that there is a deep bench of talent among Democratic leaders, and they took the time to think about and address that talent beyond who was, just well known.
Yeah. Before I introduce Kristen, I just want to listen in. Can we listen in just for a bit at the Leah Corse Center? I just want to hear some of the energy there because we had the band that was playing just moments ago. Good. I saw someone in the chat saying they're cutting up there, and they are cutting up. And guess what? They have a good reason to be, because we all remember what was a debate, 3 weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer, and then everyone was deflated after the debate saying, oh my gosh, democracy is over. And then sadly, the former president got shot, and we are not happy that he got shot. It was awful. But then people were like, you know what, it's over. He won after that. And then all of a sudden, Joe Biden did a really patriotic thing, dropped out, and then gave some much needed energy and momentum to the Democrats. And so now our democracy has a chance of being saved. And I mean that with every being in my heart. Okay, listen, now I want to introduce Kristen Ramos. Kristen Ramos is a media and public relations consultant at Autonomy Strategies, contributor to The Atlantic, Washington Post, and NBC News. Chris Cillizza, wait till you hear the rest of his resume in case you don't know. Former communications director of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and worked for the former Majority Leader Harry Reid in the Democratic Communications Center. Welcome, Kristen. How are you feeling on this day? What do you think about this event and the day's events?
I think it's
we can't hear you.
Incredible.
Oh, there you go. Yes, you're there. Sorry. Go on.
I think it's an incredible moment in our country's history for the party. I think this was a really, really smart pick. What makes it so unique and exciting is that Governor Walz, he's a good person. He is a person who has done the work, who has worked in the community. He was a high school football coach. He served in the military. He is, to Governor Patrick's point, somebody that maybe we wouldn't all be thinking about for this a couple of years ago, but now it makes perfect sense, right? Because in addition to everything that everybody else is saying, he contrasts so well with somebody like J.D. Vance, who literally doesn't have a single solitary piece of conviction in his body. He has no conviction. And what you see in Governor Walz is what you get. He's a natural politician. He is out there. He is speaking the truth. The Republicans are weird. They've been doing a lot of weird stuff, but he appeals to everyday voters because he has done the work out there, and he gives an incredible opportunity to reach Black and Latino voters. I think in particular, once they hear his story, once they hear what he's done, I think he's going to add a lot of value to the campaign as we head on into this critically important final stretch.
As we keep our eyes on Philadelphia, I want to play the moment that I almost said Senator Harris, because I'm used to calling her that, Vice President Harris and our presidential candidate Harris called Governor Walz on the phone to tell him and to congratulate him. Here it is.
Hi, this is Tim.
It's Kamala Harris. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Madam Vice President.
Listen, I want you to do this with me. Let's do this together. Would you be my running mate and let's get this thing on the road?
I would be honored, Madam Vice President.
The joy that you're bringing back to the country, the enthusiasm that's out there, it'll be a privilege to take this with you across the country.
Well, let me tell you, I have just the utmost respect for you. I have really enjoyed our work together. You understand our country. You have dedicated yourself to our country in so many different and beautiful ways. And we're going to do this. We're going to win. And we're going to unify our country and remind everyone that we are fighting for the future for everyone. So let's get out there and get this done, okay?
Let's do it. Do the work in front of us. Let's win this thing.
That's right. All right, buddy. I'll see you soon. Take care. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, this is going to sound very petty and superficial, but you know what I love the most? I love his dad outfit. I love the sneakers and the baseball cap. And look, it's just real. Oh, wait, I think we need to go to Philadelphia. Let's go to Philadelphia and we'll talk about that. Here is the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, taking the stage, and we want to listen in. Can everybody please stand by? Here we go. What I'm told is that this is going to be a stem winder of a speech from someone we had on this morning with the newspaper there in Minnesota, and they said this is his, he's going to have the public eye, he's going to have all cameras trained on him, and we can expect an amazing speech, they said. So we'll take a listen, turn the volume up so everyone can hear.
Thank you. I love you, Philly. And you know what else I love? I love being your governor. Thank you very much. Y'all fill my heart. And I love you so much. And I want you to know, every single day I go to work for you. I put my shoulder to the wheel and I focus on 3 simple letters in our alphabet, GSD. I focus on getting shit done for all of you.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
He is clearly eating this up, right?
And I want you to know, I am going to continue to pour my heart and soul into serving you every single day as your governor. And And I'm going to be working my tail off to make sure we make Kamala Harris and Tim Walz the next leaders of the United States of America. That's right. Let me tell you about my friend Kamala Harris, someone I've been friends with for 2 decades. She is courtroom tough. She has a big heart. And she is battle tested and ready to go. Whether in a courtroom, whether fighting as Attorney General, whether remembering the people who have oftentimes been left behind when she was sitting in the halls of power in the Senate, Kamala Harris has always understood that you got to be every day for the people, for the people. And she has served with honesty. She has served with dignity. And every step of the way, she's broken barriers to serve all of us. Now, Billy, hear me on this. That's a hell of a stark contrast from the guy running on the other side. Oh, y'all know who I'm talking about, I guess. You see, we remember here in Philly what it was like when Donald Trump was our president. We remember when he was president, it was more chaos, fewer jobs, and less freedom. You see, Philly, I know y'all, we walk around with a little bit of a chip on our shoulder because we remember, right? And we remember that it was Donald Trump that ripped away the freedom of millions of American women to make decisions over their own body. We remember that. We remember that. We're not going back. We are not going back. You're right. Not going back.
That has become the theme of the campaign. We are not going back.
We don't want to go back, but let's go back for a second. Just remember. Let's just remember, because I think there's some folks out there that still have a little bit of brain fog, having a hard time remembering what it was like. Now listen, he brought all that chaos and limited our freedoms back when he was president, and let's be honest, didn't know what the hell he was doing. He didn't. But this is serious, gang. He knows what he's doing now. He does. And the Supreme Court that he packed, the Supreme Court that he has packed has ruled that he is above the law. He is outside of the law. And now he's got a clear plan. They all wrote it down in that whole Project 2025 thing. And they got a clear plan to take away more of our freedoms. They got a clear plan to use the Justice Department to go against our enemies. They got a clear plan to isolate us in the world. And let me tell you something, I ain't going back. I am not going back. I'm not. And neither do you want to go back. We are not going back. We're not going back. No. We're not. And not only are we not going back, we're not going into the future with Donald Trump, not going in the future with him. A guy who has made clear, he's told us what he wants to do, more chaos, less freedom. And yo, friends, it was Maya Angelou who said it, when they tell you who they are, yeah, I believe them, and I don't want to see that. And Donald Trump, well, he's now got a partner with him. Y'all see that guy? Yeah.
All right, here we go.
J.D. Vance, he's not exactly off to a good start. I think we can all agree on that. But I think part of the reason why he's not off to a good start is this, and it's serious. He doesn't know who he is. And he's not being honest with himself, so he can't be honest with the American people. He can't.
People in the crowd are screaming, he's a weirdo.
Now, so if
Monique,
I,
you like that, huh?
and I think I do, you're chanting, he's a weirdo.
Yes, they were.
Which means, man, I love you, Philly. Which means, if you're chanting, he's a weirdo, then you heard of my good friend and our next vice president, Tim Walz. Because Tim Walz, in his beautiful Midwestern plain-spoken way, he summed up J.D. Vance the best. He's a weirdo. And
Governor, you like that, huh?
Well,
I want to talk about Tim Walz, because Philly, in a minute, he's going to come out here, and I want you to give him a whole lot of love. Tim Walz is a great man. Tim Walz is an outstanding governor. Tim Walz is a teacher. Tim Walz is a guardsman. Tim Walz is a great patriot. He is. And I'll tell you what else. Tim Walz is a dear friend. And I want you to know, Lori and I feel blessed to have Tim and Gwen in our lives. They are outstanding public servants. And I can't wait for you, Philly, the rest of this Commonwealth, and our entire country to get the chance to know the Walzes, the next vice president and second lady of this nation. Now, I think it is fitting and it is special that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have chosen to launch their campaign right here in Philadelphia, in the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. And importantly, they chose to launch their campaign right here in the birthplace of real freedom. You know,
I told you guys he was going to say that this morning.
the other side, Trump and his sycophants, let me tell you something. They love to talk a good game about freedom, right? They love to cloak themselves in the blanket of freedom all the time. They love to talk a good game. But hear me on this. It's not freedom to tell our children what books they're allowed to read. That's not freedom. It's not. It's not. It's not freedom to say you can go to work, but you can't join a union. That's not freedom. It's not freedom to tell women what they're allowed to do with their bodies. That's not freedom. It's not. It's not. It is not. No, it's not. It is not.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a campaign
It won't
here.
be that way with
I think
Kamala
so.
Harris, our president.
Pretty exciting.
And it sure as hell isn't freedom to say you can go vote, but he's going to pick the winner. That is not freedom. That's not what patriots have fought for over the years. It is not. You know what we are for? You know what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are for? They are for real freedom. They are. The kind
Your
of real
mics are
freedom.
open. If you want to speak up and say something, if it moves you, by all means. But if we want to hear it.
Can I just say that, like, I'm sure Tim Walz is going to give a good speech, but like, this is a really good speech. If you had any regrets about the VP pick, like, you know, the GSD thing, get shit done, is a really, really good political line. Like, I think he believes it too, but it plays really, really well.
Yep, let's listen back in.
We believe in real freedom, where the young girl can grow up and be whatever she wants. She can be a welder. She can go to college. She can be who she is. That is real freedom, and that is what we are fighting for.
I mean, Monique, are you tearing up? No?
No, but it's a great
She
speech.
can breathe clean air and drink clean water and know that she will leave an environment to the next generation that is great for her kids and her grandkids. And Kamala Harris and Tim Walz believe in a real freedom where you can marry who you love and be who you are.
Wow. The gays and the interracial marriage people got a big round of applause there.
Freedom is on the ballot. And our fundamental freedoms are at risk. And I know when it's at risk, it's easy to feel uneasy. And it's easy to get down. But let me tell you something, Philly. Let me tell you something, Pennsylvania. Let me tell you something, America. I am more optimistic than ever before. And the reason I'm more optimistic than ever before is because of all of you. And because of what a band of patriots started here in our taverns, in our town squares, and at Independence Hall, just a couple miles from here, nearly 2.5 centuries ago. You see, they came together. They came together to declare our independence from a king, and we're not going back to a king. And we're not going back. And when they declared that independence from a king, they came together and they said, we are going to form a union. And over the last 248 years, the reason why I'm optimistic, the reason why is because as we've written this American story over the last 2.5 centuries, it's been ordinary Americans taking up the baton from those patriots and saying, we're going to do extraordinary things. Octavius Catto understood that responsibility. Cecil B. Moore understood that responsibility. Gen Z, when they're organized and on TikTok, understand that responsibility. And I'm optimistic today because the task of perfecting our union, the task of defending our fundamental freedoms, it now falls to all of you. To freedom-loving Americans all across this great country, and to the good people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania who will decide this next election and understand our unique responsibility. I love you too. And this is a moment where we all have to understand that while we'll see Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as names on the ballot, that this election isn't just about their names on this ballot. This election is about all of you. And whether or not you're willing to do this hard work to fight for our freedom, whether or not you're willing to do this hard work that started here 248 years ago. I want to just say this. I lean on my family and I lean on my faith, which calls me to serve. And I am proud of my faith. Now hear me. I'm not here to
Senator Champion, I know that you need to step out in a bit, so when you have to go, just go. But we're so happy that you're here. I hope you're enjoying the speech.
I'm enjoying the speech, and I'm enjoying listening to it with you great minds as well. This is wonderful.
What do you think of it before you go?
I think it's a wonderful speech, and everything that he's talking about really is about who Tim Walz is and the Harris-Walz ticket, right? You know, when you look at the work that he's done here, which we'll learn more and more about him, that was a great line. You will get to know Tim Walz and all that he's going to do to support our next president and support this great nation.
Thank you, Senator. We'll see you soon. Let's listen back in.
Thank you so much.
Where you come from, who you love or who you pray to, that this will be a place for you. And are you ready to look the next president of the United States in the eye and say, hello, Madam President? I am too, so let's get to work.
Oh, what a great job. What a great job.
Wow.
You know, they're
hold on, Governor, hold on. Can we listen into the speech? Did they turn the volume down? I want to hear what the reaction is. Well, Governor, wow, what a speech. I mean, good luck with that. I mean,
rhetorically, just a great speech, but it really touches something that's been on my mind and heart for a long time. You know, as Democrats, and I'm a loyal Democrat. I'm not the sort of Democrat who thinks you have to hate Republicans to be a good Democrat. But it bugs me that Democrats have ceded so much ground over the years on two issues. One is faith and one is patriotism. And the governor in this speech talked about faith, and I think we ought to embrace it. It's not about, you know, blurring the line between church and state, but understanding that the values the other side talks about in their Christian nationalist movement are not very Christian at all. And that there are certain universal values that people of faith embrace, up to and including loving thy neighbor, that are much more aligned with the policy choices of the Democratic Party. The other is patriotism. You know, the fact that the other party wraps themselves in the figurative flag and then does all kinds of things, from voter suppression to clamping down on what we can read and in our libraries or whom we can love. They're very much against the idea of individual freedom. So the Governor Shapiro called this out in his speech, and I loved it, and he did it in a real beautiful way.
Yeah, he certainly did. And as we just heard from, listen, that was a great speech, and we are waiting the vice president and then the vice presidential hopeful, Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. But listen, it's amazing to hear him. They are definitely going to need him out on the campaign trail. Don't you think so, Christian Ramos?
Absolutely. He gives electricity wherever he goes. It's hard to overstate the shot of adrenaline that we just heard from Governor Shapiro. He really did go out there and make the case in a very clear and forthright manner. And I like the way that he used the common sense language, right? I like how he set the tones of the debate, and it felt human, and it felt lived in, and it felt like it was coming from his experience as a human being and not as a politician. And I think right now, again, this question of authenticity. What do people really believe? What do people really feel? I think that contrast with the reality show shenanigans that we see from the conservatives, from Republicans, from MAGA Republicans, we need it seems very ordinary. It seems normal, which is what people are craving right now. They don't want the distractions. They don't want the constant chaos of MAGA. And I think Governor Shapiro, Governor Walz, and Vice President Harris absolutely bring the needed contrast to that and make the case beautifully for Democrats right now.
Do you think there was some, Crystalliza in this, like, hey, I'm going to show them what they missed out on?
Of course. Yes. I mean, we're all human beings. He's in Philadelphia, right? He's in his home city. He's in his home state. Everybody knows he was the second choice, which, like, no disrespect there, but yes, absolutely. Did he give it a little more oomph? Probably. But I mean, I said this before, I'll say it again. That was one hell of a good speech. Like, just as a piece of political rhetoric, like take any sort of partisan lens from it. That's a really good speech. I think that he is someone who I think will be heard from in the future of the Democratic Party. I think he's 51. He will, my guess, be a very prominent speaker at the convention later this month. And one other thing I'll say, Don, is, like, give him credit. Like, I know he's a performer. I know he's a politician, but it is difficult to wake up Tuesday, August 6th in the morning and think, I probably got like a 50-50 chance of being president of the United States, and then being vice president of the United States. And then, 12 hours later, be on stage giving it all to the guy who beat you out for the nomination. We're still people. We're still competitive, right? So that's a tough spot to be in. If he had given just an okay speech, I would say that's a tough spot to be in. But that was a very, whether you like him or you don't like him, or you're not sure how you feel about him, that was a very, very good and difficult to give and classy. And I don't always say that in politics, but a classy speech.
Well, I would say I don't think that I haven't heard or seen anyone say that they don't like him. I think they're concerned about his policies and his stance on certain issues, but they think he is smart. He's a good politician. Obviously, he's a good orator. I mean, what do they call him? They call him the Jewish Obama or the white Obama?
Baruch. I like Baruch Obama.
Yes. Monique, you were, I heard some, yes, during the speech. And what were you thinking? What do you think?
Great speech. And there will be many great speeches. There is no lack of eloquence and
in the party
ability on our side of this race. The likes of former President Obama and FLOTUS Michelle Obama will be on the trail. And
Monique, can I ask you something? Why is it that it appears to me that Democrats seem to be much better orators? If you look at, President Bush was folksy. Ronald Reagan was pretty good. He was quick-witted. I will not, I won't exploit my opponent's youth and inexperience and whatever. But when you look at Bill Clinton, you look at Barack Obama, you look at Tim Walz, you look at Jesse Jackson. Why is it? Is it out of the tradition of the church, or what is going on? Why does it seem to be better orators on the Democratic side?
I was about to say it's traditions and culture. Certainly,
it is.
It's in terms of being raised up uh, all the names that you just named. And it's not a black thing or a white thing as much as I think it is the party and the support for all of the coalitions of the civil rights movement coming out of the tradition of the Black church and coming out of the tradition of just an oratory response in order to get the populace of the crowd. And that's where I agree with the governor that we have ceded a lot of ground. How dare anyone say that the Democratic Party is godless when every elected candidate I can think of in my 53 years has gotten elected because of the support of the church, especially the Black church and the base of the party. So there are rootings in faith. There are roots in respect for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a lot of that in this speech. What I didn't hear in the speech was a lot of negativity. He spent much more of his time lifting up these candidates. And I think that was the right thing to do, the appropriate thing to do. He wasn't going after a lot of red meat. He was pushing forward vision and paving the way for these candidates. But the other thing that I would say is it doesn't surprise me that he would give one of his best speeches ever, and that wouldn't surprise me if Bashir was up there. That wouldn't surprise me if it was Mark Kelly up there. These are career public servants who care about democracy, and there was not a bad pick among them. And that is the thing that I think is lost in our political climate in general, that there are still many people who, though we may disagree with where they want to go with their policies, we shouldn't miss the fact that they're doing this when they could do anything. It's not just being power hungry. It's that they have chosen to live lives of service, and the servanthood part of it comes at great cost to their families, to their own ambitions, to their pockets. And so I have a good deal of respect on both sides of the aisle for people who choose to do this with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because you couldn't get me to do it, just saying.
Yeah. As we were talking about soul, soul brothers and blue-eyed soul brothers, I'm talking about Bill Clinton. As we're talking about that, they're playing Marvin Gaye. So there's a very soulful element to the Democratic Party. Listen, we had Bob Casey, the Pennsylvania senator, up there, and then Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, spoke. He said, "I love being your governor." He said that particularly resonated with everyone. He said, I am GSD. This is what I'm doing here. I'm getting shit done." Those were his words as we wait for the Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. He said that we have power, heart, and soul. He's going to put all of that into serving you every single day. And he's going to do everything he can to make Kamala Harris and Tim Walz the next leader of America. He said that he's been friends with Kamala Harris for 2 decades, that she was battle tested and ready to go. He said Trump means more chaos, fewer jobs, less freedom, ripped away a freedom of women to make their own choices about for their own bodies and reproductive rights. There's Jamie Harris. He's the head of the Democratic Party speaking now. He said, we are not going back. He said DJT, Donald J. Trump, didn't know what he was doing, that he packed the Supreme Court, and he thinks he's above the law. He talked about Project 2025 that want to take away our freedoms. He said J.D. Vance was off to a bad start. He was a weirdo. He didn't say that. The crowd said that, and then he repeated it. And here we go. Let's listen in for Kamala Harris, the vice president, and Governor Tim Walz. Let's listen, everyone.
Beyonce on blast.
Yes, you're listening to Beyonce. Tell us about Beyonce, because I think this is an endorsement if I've ever seen one, right? Oh my gosh, the crowd is going crazy there in the Leah Course Center at Temple University in Philadelphia. It is amazing. We put up a poll and it says, what did you think of the speech? And it says it was amazing. That was the overall consensus. I won't even go through it. So, most people saying that it was amazing.
First person in line was there at 5:30 a.m.
5:30 a.m. 10,000 people at least.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
They are some giggling, laughing candidates.
It's good to see people happy.
I love
don't know
it.
why
I
people
love the
do that.
joyfulness.
Yeah.
Yep,
Good evening.
they're the best.
Oh, it is good to be back in Pennsylvania. So let me say, on behalf of myself and the first, second gentleman of the United States, my husband, Doug Emhoff, thank you for the warm welcome. And let me just say, it's good to be here with all of the friends, all of the leaders who are here. I want to thank former Governor Ed Rendell, Senator Bob Casey, who we will re-elect this November, Senator John Fetterman, Mayor Sherelle Parker, and Chairman Jamie Harrison. And it is so good to be here with your incredible Governor, Josh Shapiro. And I will say, Josh is a dear, dear friend and an extraordinary leader. He and I have been spending a lot of time together over the years. And I told Josh, look, I am so invested in our friendship in doing this together, because together with Josh Shapiro, we will win Pennsylvania. We will win Pennsylvania. And I thank you, Josh.
There you go.
I thank you. So Philadelphia, I launched my campaign for the President of the United States a mere 2 weeks ago. And it's been a bit of a whirlwind. And just last night, the delegates to the Democratic National Convention finished voting. And so I stand before you today to proudly announce I am now officially the Democratic nominee for President of the United States.
And that was a moment everybody was waiting for. Governor, I understand that you're going to have to leave soon. So if you can give us some quick words if you got to go, because we want to listen to the speech. But thank you
You
for
would
being
ask
here.
me right now when I'm all choked up. I'm excited about the moment, John. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be with everybody. I'll see you in Chicago.
Thank you. We'll see you in Chicago. Thank you, Governor. Let's listen back in.
We are the underdogs in this race, but we have the momentum, and I know exactly what we are up against. Now, many of you know, before I was elected vice president or elected a United States senator, I was an elected attorney general, and before that, elected district attorney. And before that, I was a courtroom prosecutor. So in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. Fraudsters who scammed consumers. Cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say,
You know where she's going, Monique. We lost Chris as well.
Donald Trump's type.
He knows his type.
So, but let me just say, hold on.
September.
Hold on.
They look good together, actually.
Our campaign is not just a fight against Donald Trump. Our campaign, this campaign, is a fight for the future. It's a fight for the future. In Pennsylvania, we fight for a future with affordable housing, affordable health care, affordable child care, paid leave. We fight for a future where we build a broad-based economy, where every American has the opportunity to own a home, to start a business, and to build wealth. We fight for a future where we bring down prices that are still too high and lower the cost of living for America's families. So that they have a chance not just to get by, but to get ahead.
It's interesting he'll speak after her.
We fight for a future where we defend our most fundamental freedoms. The freedom to vote.
Well, I think she had to announce.
Yeah.
The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. And the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body, not having her government tell her what to do.
Preach, ma'am.
So, I love you too. So here's the thing. Since the day that I announced my candidacy, I set out to find a partner who can help build this brighter future. A leader who will help unite our nation and move us forward. A fighter for the middle class. A patriot who believes, as I do, in the extraordinary promise of America. A promise of freedom, opportunity, and justice, not just for some, but for all. So Pennsylvania, I'm here today because I found such a leader. Governor Tim To those who know him best, Tim is more than a governor. To his wife, Gwen, he is a husband. To his kids, Hope and Gus, he is a dad. To
Oh, I
his
have a
fellow
Gus
Southern-
here.
He is Sergeant Major Walz. To the people of Southern Minnesota, for 12 years, he was congressman. To his former high school students, he was Mr. Walz.
Isn't that interesting how you do that for your
To his
teachers and
former high
principals?
school football players, he was coach.
Good.
Coach. And in 91 days, the nation will know Coach Walz by another name, Vice President of the United States.
This is a good speech too. The crowd is screaming, Tim, Tim, Tim. I was laughing earlier, Monique, because there was a thing on social talking about Black people adding a T to his name, calling him Waltz.
And I'll tell you, he is the proud product of a middle
I'm
class
guilty of
family
that as
in
well.
Nebraska. He is a veteran who
In my
served our
group
nation
chat,
in uniform
one
for
of my
more than
friends
2 decades.
type from
as
the
a
windows
member
to the walls.
of the Army National
From the
Guard.
windows to the
And he
WALZ.
went to college on the GI Bill. He is someone who long before he entered politics worked as a teacher. When Coach Walz and his wife Gwen moved from his native Nebraska to Minnesota nearly 30 years ago, they both took jobs at the local high school. Coach Walz taught social studies, Gwen taught English. After school, Tim was the linebackers coach for the football team. Where I've heard the stories about he had a knack for using the game of football to teach life lessons. He saw the potential in kids who sometimes didn't even see it in themselves.
He's gotten a lot done with his life.
He's accomplished a heck of a lot, and you can't say that he's not qualified.
Coach Walz motivated his players to believe they could achieve anything. And together, they defied the odds, hear this out, going from a winless record to the school's first ever state championship.
He's so happy.
And I'll say and I'll add, Tim wasn't only a role model on the football field. Around that same time, Coach Walz was approached by a student in his social studies class. The young man was one of the first openly gay students at the school and was hoping to start a gay-straight alliance.
I love this story.
At a time when acceptance was difficult to find for LGBTQ students, Tim knew the signal that it would send to have a football coach get involved. He signed up to be the group's faculty advisor. And as students have said, he made the school a safe place for everybody. In the high school yearbook, the students voted Coach Walz the, quote, most inspiring faculty member. And as I think everyone here can see, Tim Walz was the kind of teacher and mentor that every child in America dreams of having, and that every kid deserves. The kind of coach, because he's the kind of person who makes people feel like they belong and then inspires them to dream big. And that's the kind of vice president he will be. And that's the kind of vice president America deserves. So it was Coach Walz's students who actually helped him decide to run for office. And he served 12 years in Congress, representing a purple district as he reached across the aisle to get things done. He was the highest ranking enlisted man to ever serve in the United States Congress.
That's amazing.
And the top Democrat on the Veterans Committee. And he was known as one of Capitol Hill's best marksmen, winning a bipartisan sharpshooting contest year after year. In Washington, Tim worked to raise the minimum wage, to protect the freedom of workers to join a union, and he cast one of the critical votes to pass the Affordable Care Act. Which, of course, gave health insurance to tens of millions of Americans. I'm going to tell you, when we win, Tim and I will continue to make the Affordable Care Act even stronger. We will win. Wow. Now, let's talk about what we're dealing with on this side. So on that last topic, if Donald Trump gets the chance, he will end the Affordable Care Act and take us back to a time when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. You remember what that was like?
Abe Gerko just joined us for some analysis. Thanks for joining, Abe.
Children with asthma, breast cancer survivors.
Have you been watching the speech?
Well, Governor Walz and I will not let that happen.
What do you think in a couple of words?
Because we believe healthcare should be a right, not just a privilege for those who can afford it. As governor, Tim has continued to fight for working families. He secured paid leave for workers in Minnesota. And he refused as governor to allow any student in their public schools to go hungry breakfast and lunch free for every child. And Tim Walz and I, we agree about many things, including when our middle class is strong, America is strong. And strengthening the middle class will be my defining goal as I am President of the United States. So Pennsylvania, ours is a fight for the future of the middle class, and it is a fight for freedom. In this moment, we are witnessing a full-on attack against hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights.
I have not heard one mistake, one.
Think about this. Donald Trump said he wants to punish.
No messing up on the prompter. I'm like, wait, what did Donald Trump say?
And as a
You know what
result
I'm
of
saying?
his actions,
Sure,
today
sure.
in America, 1 out of 3 women live in a state with a Trump abortion ban. 1 out of 3. Some of these bans go back to the 1800s. Even before women had a right to vote. Think about that. Well, Tim and I have a message for Trump and others who want to turn back the clock on our fundamental freedoms. We're not going back.
That is the theme of the campaign, right? We're not going back.
I love it.
I thought it should be unburdened by what has been, meaning the Trump administration.
They make so much fun of her for that.
I think she needs to own it.
They can make as much fun of her as they want. You know, that's a lot.
You're a little garbled, Abe.
Let it go.
About Tim Walz.
Where are we?
He has shown up
Better?
and against these attacks long before he stood on the stage with me.
You're good.
After Roe was overturned, he was the first governor in the country to sign a new law that enshrined reproductive freedom as a fundamental right. And with Tim Walz by my side, when I am President of the United States and we win majorities in the United States Congress, we will pass a bill to restore reproductive freedom, and I will proudly sign it into law.
You might get this done.
Tim Walz defended the sacred freedom to vote. As governor, he signed the most significant expansion of voting rights in Minnesota in over 50 years.
What a resume this guy has.
And with Governor Walz's help, when I am president, we are going to finally pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. We're going to get it. So Tim is a hunter and a gun owner who believes, as the majority of gun owners do, that we need reasonable gun safety laws in America. So as governor, he expanded background checks and increased penalties for illegal firearm sales. And together, when we win in November, we are
Can you mute your mic? You're giving a little feedback.
background checks, red flag laws, and an assault weapons ban. Through his work, Tim, the way I think about it, he really does shine a light on a brighter future that we can build together. In his state, he has been a model chief executive, and with his experience, I'm telling you, Tim Walz will be ready on day one. In fact, when you compare his resume,
Oh, here we go.
shall we, to Trump's running mate, well, some might say it's like a matchup between the varsity team and the JV squad. So Pennsylvania, ultimately in this election, we each face a question.
Can you guys mute the
What
mics?
kind of country do we want to live in? A country of freedom, compassion, and rule of law, or a country of chaos, fear, and hate? And here's the beauty of our democracy. We each have the power to answer that question. We each have the power to answer that question. The power is with the people. We love our country, and I believe it is the highest form of patriotism to fight for the ideals of our country. That is how we preserve the promise of America. And after all, you know, the promise of America is what makes it possible for two middle-class kids, one a daughter of Oakland, California, who was raised by a working mother, the other a son of the Nebraska plains who grew up working on a farm, it's the promise of America, because only in America is it possible for them together to make it all the way to the White House. Only in America. Only in America. Only in America. That's right. And so Coach Walz and I may hail from different corners of our great country, but our values are the same. And we both believe in lifting people up, not knocking them down. He and I, we both know the vast majority of people in our country have so much more in common than what separates them. When we look at folks, we see in our fellow Americans neighbors, not enemies. Not enemies. And so my promise to you is this. Our campaign will reach out to everyone, from red states to blue states, from the heartland to the coast, in rural, urban, suburban, and tribal communities. We are running a campaign on behalf of all Americans. And when elected, we will govern on behalf of all Americans. And so, with Tim Walz by my side, and with all of you at our side, let us fight for the promise of our future. And with that, I ask Pennsylvania, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win. And now, welcome the next Vice President of the United States, Tim Walz.
Well, now that was an introduction if I've ever heard one. Look how happy he is. I love it. I love his energy.
Thank
He looks overwhelmed like he's going to cry because he's so happy.
Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you, Madam Vice President, for the trust you put in me, but maybe more so, thank you for bringing back the joy. I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you and Doug, this incredible journey. And Pennsylvania, I know you know this, but my God, what a treasure you have in Josh Shapiro. Holy hell, can this guy bring the fire? He can bring the fire. This is a visionary leader. Also, I have to tell you, everybody in America knows when you need a bridge fixed, call that guy. And I think sometimes we forget and you see people a little one-dimensional, but seeing a guy who cares so deeply about his family, a man with compassion, vision, and I'll have to tell you this, I know this from experience, there is no one you would rather go to a Springsteen concert in Jersey with than him. Than that guy.
This is why people love him.
Roots. And I can't wait for all of you and America to get to know my incredible wife, Gwen, a 29-year public school educator. Don't ever underestimate teachers. And our two beautiful kids, Hope and Gus. I couldn't be prouder to be on this ticket and to help Vice President Harris become what we all know is very, very good for us to think about. Next President of the United States of America. From her first day as a prosecutor, as a district attorney, Attorney General of the great state of California, a United States Senator, and Vice President of the United States. Vice President Harris has fought on the side of the American people. She took on the predators, she took on the fraudsters, she took down the transnational gangs, she stood up against powerful corporate interests, and she never hesitated to reach across the aisle if it meant improving people's lives. And I want all of you to hold this, and don't ever underestimate the power of this. She does it all with a sense of joy. I know a little something about that commitment to people. I was born in West Point, Nebraska. I lived in Butte, a small town of 400, where community was a way of life. Growing up, I spent the summers working on the family farm. My mom and dad taught us, show generosity towards your neighbors and work for a common good. My dad served in the Army during the Korean War. With his encouragement, at 17, I joined the Army National Guard. For 24 years, I proudly wore the uniform of this nation. The National Guard gave me purpose. It gave me the strength of a shared commitment to something greater than ourselves. And just as it did for my dad and millions of others, the GI Bill gave me a shot at a college education. My dad was a teacher. My brothers and sisters and I followed in their footsteps. 3 out of 4 of us married teachers. What we do. For nearly 20 years, I had the privilege of teaching high school social studies and coaching football. Including winning that state championship. Thank you. Don't ever close the yearbook. Don't ever. But it was my students. They encouraged me to run for office. They saw in me what I was hoping to instill in them, a commitment of common good, a belief that one person can make a difference. So in 2006, I took a leap and I ran for Congress. And because high school teachers are super optimistic, I was running in a district that had 1 Democrat since 1892. Well, my neighbors graced me with an opportunity to represent them in the United States House of Representatives. I'm proud of the work we did there together. I worked across the aisle on veterans issues, on agriculture, and on ways to grow rural economies. I learned the art of compromise without compromising my values. And now, as governor of the great state of Minnesota, I bring those experiences to bear in tackling the challenges that are facing our great state. Minnesota's strength comes from our values, our commitment to working together, to seeing past our differences, to always being willing to lend a helping hand. Those are the same values I learned on the family farm and tried to instill in my students. I took it to Congress and to the state capitol, and now Vice President Harris and I are running to take those very values to the White House. Now, Donald Trump sees the world a little differently than us. First of all, he doesn't know the first thing about service. He doesn't have time for it because he's too busy serving himself. Again and again and again, Trump weakens our economy to strengthen his own hand. He mocks our laws. He sows chaos and division. And that's to say nothing of his record as president. He froze in the face of the COVID crisis.
Yeah.
He drove our economy into the ground. And make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed. You know, some of us are, some of us in here are old enough to remember. I see you down there. I see those old white guys. Some of us are old enough to remember when it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now what they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
Wow, he's good, man. He's good. This is a speech that Vance wanted to do but can't.
These guys are after my heart chanting, mind your own damn business. That feels good, so thank you. Look, that includes IVF, and this gets personal for me and my family. When my wife and I decided to have children, we spent years going through infertility treatments. And I remember praying every night for a call for good news. The pit in my stomach when the phone rang, and the agony when we heard that the treatments hadn't worked. So it wasn't by chance that when we welcomed our daughter into the world, we named her Hope. When Vice President and I talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make your own healthcare decisions. And for our children to be free to go to school without worrying they'll be shot dead in their classrooms. By the way, as you heard, I was one of the best shots in Congress, but in Minnesota, we believe in the Second Amendment, but we also believe in common sense gun violence laws.
Damn, he is good, man.
Vice President Harris' idea of freedom is a ticket for education to be that ticket to the middle class, not crippling debt. Air that's clean, water that's pure, communities that are safe. A place where we settle our political differences not through violence, but with our votes. And that's what this election's about. What direction will this country go in? He's not going back. Well, Donald Trump would damn sure take us backwards. Let's be clear about that. And don't believe him when he plays dumb. He knows exactly what Project 2025 will do to restrict our freedoms. To rig the economy to help the super rich. If Trump gets a chance to return, he's going to pick up exactly where he left off 4 years ago. Only this time, it will be much, much worse. Raising costs on middle-class family. He will repeal the Affordable Care Act, no doubt about it. He'll gut Social Security and Medicare. And when somebody tells you are, they believe him. He said he'd ban abortion across this country, and he'll do it, whether or not Congress is there or not. Donald Trump's not fighting for you or your family. He never sat at that kitchen table like the one I grew up at, wondering how we were going to pay the bills. He sat at his country club up in Mar-a-Lago, wondering how he can cut taxes for his rich friends. And I got to tell you, his running mate shares his dangerous and backward agenda for this country. J.D. Vance literally wrote the foreword for the architect of the Project 2025 agenda. Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires.
No, he's not.
Trashing that community. Come on. That's not what middle America is. And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
That's all I wanted was a debate. That's all I want. I would pay money to see a debate between Vance and Walz. Am I alone on that?
All the debates. Are you kidding? Her debate with Stinky? Forget it. It's going to be fantastic. Fantastic.
JV and varsity.
If he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So.
Ooh, he went there.
Oh, wow.
How much fun are we having?
Her face, she's like, I got the right one.
Yeah. He wasn't my first choice.
What did you say about unforced errors in black women? I mean, hello.
I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see. So you know what's out there, so say it with me. We aren't going back. We aren't going back. We are not going back. So we got 91 days. My God, that's easy. We'll sleep when we're dead.
I have a friend who says that.
Over those next 91 days and every day in the White House, I'll have Vice President Harris's back every single day.
That's why she picked him.
And we'll have yours. You know how this works. You can't do it alone. We need you, each and every one of you. Go over to KAMALA-Harris.com, get on board, because we need you. Freedom to make our own choices. This leader, this compassionate, careful, joyous leader believes in each and every one of you. My God, you came here tonight to sit at the very top because you love this country.
Can you guys mute?
You're not going back. She believes in the opportunity for every single person to join the middle class. She believes in the promise of America. We just got to fight. We just got to fight. Because as soon-to-be President Harris says, when we fight, we win. Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you, Vice President. God bless America.
Look at him. He's so happy. She's like, I got the right. What's that one? You got the right one, baby. Let's listen. Before you guys answer, let's listen into a little bit of the crowd. Oh, there's Doug. Excuse me, there's the second gentleman, soon to be first gentleman. There's his wife, Gwen. Is that her name? Is she Gwen? Or is that Shapiro's wife? Amazing. Oh, look at that. Amazing. They're so happy. Okay, guys. Abe Gurko is joining us. Abe, thank you so much. Abe is, of course, a best-selling author, producer, humorist, and the man behind the Substack opinion column called Won't Be Silent. Abe, let's bring you in because I want to hear, Monique and I have been talking. We are, we think it's great. Cindy Turley in the comments says, yes, this is our ticket. Yes, I think it's the best ticket. Look, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican either, so don't get, I'm an independent. This is a good ticket. And I've heard so many Trump MAGA rallies over the years, and there was not this much excitement, this kind of a rally for on the Democratic side. This is new. And by the way, these bands are very similar to the bands I'm told that they wear at the Taylor Swift concerts, the red, white, and blue glowing band. What you think there, Abe?
I just, from the second she became the potential candidate a couple weeks ago, I instantly felt this sense of joy. It's been mentioned already by Tim Walz that she's about joy. This is a joyous opportunity for the Democratic Party to find its footing and think about us as a party, not just from now till November, but just, it's like a reboot for democracy. I really feel, and I don't use the word democracy lately anymore because I feel like it's been slipping away from our fingers, but I feel a sense of renewed hope. It's a different kind of, it's different because it's also it's almost I can feel that we're going to elect our first woman. Hey, let me play my I'm just am very hopeful for this ticket.
Are you okay, Abe?
Great. You know what? I was walking in this. I looked too red.
Oh, I just thought you were being emotional. I'm not criticizing.
No, I was verklempt earlier, but yeah, he's great. He wasn't my first choice. I did a whole post about it, but
we talked about it, Abe, after our conversation. Remember last week after you were on, we discussed this and we discussed all of the people who, I don't know if we called it, I don't know, hypocrisy or cognitive dissonance or what, all the people who should be supporting this ticket, but for some reason have become part of the cult on the other side. And we were talking about, what you were saying. And, hey, look, we're in a different place right now.
It's so clear what the options are. It's either going through this very fascist rule playbook. They're playing an old playbook that's effectively worked in Germany in the 30s. And I'm not just being like, kind of flippant about it. If you really look at Project 2025, that's what it's doing or wants to do. And, a democracy is a messy kind of thing. Democrats were not the best messengers. Historically, we kind of just are, trying to be too many things to too many people and ends up kind of getting us in trouble. But this feels just right. I just feel even though he wasn't my first choice, but after 5 minutes of researching him even more so, I felt like something was lifted off my chest. I felt that breath of fresh air that we have an opportunity to care about this election on a different kind of level. Not just, we're going to vote for Joe because it's going to be like, like it was almost like we were like white knuckling through this potential election. And now it's like, yeah, let's like do this. And the music is lightened and everything is fresh and cool and hip. And I'm proud to say that this is who my candidate is. Then I wasn't.
Well, Beth H is in the comments saying Melania won't vote for Trump. Listen, I don't know if that is true or not, but Trump won't vote for Trump because felons, and I hate using that word because there are people who are, have been through the system who should be allowed to vote, right, and deserve a second chance, but they can't vote in Florida and New York. So Donald Trump can't even vote for himself.
It's almost like you can't wait for that day when he's like,
how are they going to explain that? But let's keep it to today. Let's keep it to today because I want to talk about Tim Walz, okay? Because people were really, that sort of, it was sort of surprising that not to me, because I said, I've been telling both of you, I told Monique, I think I told you that I think it's going to be Tim Walz. Okay, so people have been, his critics, especially on the Trump side, the MAGA folks have been saying, oh, he is a progressive. The squad is going to love him. This ticket is going to be too far to the left. The actual, that's what the rhetoric shows, but I like to deal in facts. And so I'm going to show you, this is him, his ideological map. This is from 2013 to 2018 when he served in Congress, okay? So look at that. Tim Walz is right down the middle. He is right. He is a centrist.
Yeah, he's
if anything, by allowing school children to have lunches and meals in schools, that's not left. That's being a human being. That's being empathetic. That's being a real person. By putting tampon machines, I hate to, well, listen, women need tampons. Okay? But by putting those machines in schools, what I think is actually helpful, Monique, you can speak on this, to young ladies who are dealing with that in school. That's not an insult to him by calling him, out of his name. I won't even say what they're calling him. This is coming from what I call the MAGA maxi pads, who are putting maxi pads on their ears like a cult, and somehow they think that they are insulting Tim by calling him Governor Walz, by calling him that name. That's a self-own for the MAGA people. So let's just deal in facts here. They're scared, Monique. I think MAGA is shook.
Sure, and they should be.
And please comment on the women's reproductive rights. As a man, I can be an ally, but who am I to speak for women? Sorry, go on.
Right. So reproductive rights, but I do want to talk even about what you mentioned about providing for tampons, sanitary napkins in school.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Latasha Brown, who is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter Fund, but also is the convener of the Southern Black Girls Coalition, Southern Black Girls and Women. And one of the things that they found when they were talking to and building their data for girls in the South is that there was a lack of funds available for basic fundamental needs like sanitary napkins, tampons. And so as they started partnering with organizations to provide funding, it was around doing things exactly like that. So when you look at a governor who's so in touch with that, not because it's a lefty thing to do, but because it's a quality of life thing to do, same as, making sure that breakfast and lunch are free. That's a quality of life thing to do that enables children to have the best start and to go through their day not being hungry. The Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration did something about childhood hunger, and then the Republicans came back and quickly ended it. We could be much further down the road. But the other thing that I want to say in observing him, that I've noticed in observing him speak, I'm a career comms person, lawyer, debate coach. And what I think he gets exactly right, which is why people maybe inside Beltway don't or did not understand, and to me why it means the VP proved like the first leadership test. She provided a VP pick that was close to who Americans are, the vast majority of Americans. So when he says people from my neck of the woods didn't graduate from Yale and didn't go off to San Francisco to make their money in tech world. He's talking to everybody. It's not that he isn't an inside Beltway person, because he has been. He was in Congress for years and years. But when he speaks, he doesn't speak like one. He touches on the heart of what we think of as every man, every woman. They call it plain speak, but it isn't really, because he doesn't dumb down his speech. He just speaks in his own voice.
It's just the way he says it, right?
Yes, he keeps it very relatable, and it is they are opposite sides of the same coin. They are very aligned on policy, but their presentations are completely different, both effective but different, and that's magic sauce. That's what that is.
Magic sauce. Other things. So listen, can I play this? Because I hate to get away from this speech, because I thought it was so good, especially him. He is just so real. And that is, you don't have to be a preacher and then, I know, you're ready. Oh, yeah. You don't have to do that to be a great orator, right?
Yeah.
You just have to. One, I think this is a key to every person's success. And I think it's been the key to my success and all of us, people who are successful, is authenticity.
Yeah.
People can spot a phony a mile away, even when you're reading off of a teleprompter, right? And so I think they spot that in J.D. Vance, that J.D. Vance will do anything. He is a shapeshifter. He tries to be all things to all people. He'll say anything to get elected. Same thing with Nikki Haley. The same thing with Marco Rubio. The same thing with Ted Cruz. The same thing with, what's the other senator? Lindsey Graham. Anything, right? But Tim Walz is the same person with the same values every single day, right? And so that comes across. This is the first VP campaign ad. Take a look.
Sometimes life is as much about the lessons you learn as the lessons you teach. When I grew up, community was a way of life. My high school class was 24 people. I was related to half of them. I learned to be generous towards my neighbors, compromise without compromising my values, and work for the common good. My dad was in the Army, and with his encouragement, I joined the Army National Guard when I was 17. I served for 24 years. I used my GI benefits to go to college and become a public school teacher. I coached football and taught social studies for 20 years. And I tried to teach my students what small-town Nebraska taught me: respect, compromise, service to country. And so when I went into government, that's what I carried with me. I worked with Republicans to pass an infrastructure bill, cut taxes for working families, signed paid leave into law. I codified abortion rights after Roe got overturned, because I go to work for the common good. But enough about me. Let's talk about you, because that's what this election is about. It's about your future. It's about your family. And Vice President Harris knows that. She too grew up in a middle-class family. She too goes to work every day, making sure families can not just get by, but get ahead. We believe in the promise of America, in those values I learned in Nebraska, and we're ready to fight for them. Because as Kamala Harris says, when we fight, we win.
What you think, Abe? I love the guitar, the AC/DC style. I love it. It's
The
good.
fact that he speaks to middle America in a way that I don't remember the last time a candidate did that, actually. It's just beautiful. It's just the whole thing. It feels like it's all being played on a Stradivarius. There's this poetry from the day Joe quit to that Sunday to this beautiful day. And even though, again, he wasn't my first pick, but 10 minutes into just kind of giving it a shot, there's nobody better. You got it right, Don. It's
He's great. And look, the team behind them, I think, is really good. And maybe they needed something to work with, right? But also, as I talk about people who being authentic and they don't change, they're not a weather vane. This is a Tim Walz congressional ad. Watch this.
Sometimes an everyday person comes along and helps put the impossible within our reach. The coach who could see a championship 3 years before the big game. The teacher who inspires generations one by one. The soldier who served for 2 decades, but ready when they attacked. Everyday heroes. Right here in Minnesota, Tim Walz is one of those everyday people. Coach to the state champs. Teacher of the Year. Command Sergeant Major. Retiring 4 years late after a tour supporting the war in Afghanistan.
I'm not a politician, and I never plan to run for office. I've lived my life like most people, trying to do right by my family and my neighbors. But the same bad news night after night means we can't just sit on the sidelines. Our troops deserve a plan to win the peace. We can find solutions for healthcare and education. It's time to put the people's priorities first. But to change the priorities, we need to change the Congress. I'm Tim Walz, and I approve this message.
That's the same guy. I mean, you know, he's a little thinner now, and and he actually looks younger than he did in the congressional ad. But he hasn't changed. His values haven't changed. He's not saying something just to be on a ticket.
Same guy. Yeah, same guy. You can see the through line, and the decency shines forth. Nobody would listen to him and call him slick. And it doesn't mean that he isn't shrewd. There's a difference. People would not listen to him and call him dumb or stupid. And at the same time, he obviously is able to touch and reach out and communicate well with people on every level. And that is something that he shares in common with the vice president. And I believe that they are going to do well. Listen, the rule about picking VPs is do no harm. And then the second thing you want is somebody who can help. She's got both. And definitely President Biden, when he was making his selection, got both in her. And President Obama, when he was making his selection, got both in then VP Biden. So I think that the legacy is working, and there are a lot of similarities. I mean, there are a lot of the same people coming to the table to help to make sure these things happen. Man, Don, but I just got to say that campaign team is ferocious.
I just said that. I just said that. Yeah. What do you think of? They're good, right? And the social media, they've been all over it. What do you think of Coach Walz versus Couch Vance?
I mean, I don't even.
I'll let Abe answer that.
I think you're not comparing apples to, it's apples and oranges. It's just, it's almost like it's disrespectful to even think of J.D. Vance in the way that you could even use the word respect. I mean, he's just someone that's proving to just be self-centered and incompetent in regards to running as the running mate to Trump even. I mean,
you're right. It doesn't seem like it's even a fair comparison. I mean, someone just said about you, Abe, it says, DJH says, Abe wants to twist and shout. I think they're right.
I'm enjoying this moment so much that when was the last time you had a tear for a commercial for
oh my God, you got the tickle up your leg or whatever? Like
I didn't quite go there, but yeah, just how lucky are we to enjoy these next few months to be sharing about these two people as the ones that potentially can be in our White House. I don't think anyone should use the word landslide. We should just stay focused on the mission at hand, make sure everyone's registered, all this stuff that sounds like, pat answers to this, but more than ever. I mean, but the other thing, and I kept saying, and I've said it to you before, we're not in foreign territory here. We got him out of the White House in 2020. So we can get him out. So it's not daunting what we have to do. We just have a tremendously lovely way to do it this time, with bells and whistles. We're going to do it with all the bells and whistles, with all the bracelets and the joy and the singing and the, how lucky are we to be doing this now?
My producer says it's like comparing apples to ottomans. So do you think, I think Shapiro is smart enough to be on board. Do you guys agree with that? And to not show any sour grapes or anything like that, correct? Even though he may be disappointed.
Well, I mean, he's in a cush position as a governor, and he's got a long road of successes that are in front of him. And frankly, if JD Vance was showing differently, he could have a long road in front of him. Because if you don't have experience, what you have to at least show forth is vision, and he's failing on both. And so that's why it's really like apples and bad staplers. You know, I mean, there isn't any comparing. The one thing that I want to say about Governor Walz that I think that especially people who are looking at his moderate policies need to have an understanding about, when George Floyd was murdered and a decision had to be made about what was going to be done in the prosecution of the case and whether there was going to be charging and all of those decisions, it was Governor Tim Walz's decision to bring in Keith Ellison in order to head that. It was his decision to not go with who was already in the department, and it made all the difference in the world. I will also say, as someone who's consulted with Attorney Crump for years, who has known the Floyd family for years now, marched with them, worked with them, Governor Walz was that person who you see, that's him, and in a very difficult job. And those are the people that you want to be at the height of your leadership, who can make the right decisions when everything is like in turmoil around. And he showed up for that family, and it made for just outcomes in a hellish situation. So I think that as people dig into who he is, they will find, no matter where they are on the spectrum, that he makes decisions that put humans first.
Yeah.
Seems like
Well,
the kind heart. That's who he is. At the center, that's what we're getting. And the fact that he was a coach is why he could speak so well on the fly, because he knows he has to command people to pay attention and listen. He's just like, it's kind of like you can't even make this up, you know. It's just all the detail. He checks all the boxes that I wasn't thinking of checking when I had a different choice, you know. He's just yeah.
What do you think about when there was a student when he was teaching who wanted to start a gay-straight alliance? And this was back in the day. I think this was during Don't Ask, Don't Tell or whatever. And he became sort of a co-sponsor and an advisor to the Gay-Straight Alliance, helping that student. Again, this goes to the fact that he is the same person that he's always been. So he's not a shapeshifter, and he believes in what he believes in. And to be able to do that shows that he's a leader, I think. Abe, what do you make of that as a, you know, I don't want to out you here on the program, but how do you think of that?
I think he just seems like he cares about people. It just goes back to that. If he's part of trying to make a solution happen, you know, look, a gay-straight alliance is, I kind of vaguely remember when that was in the news. It seems like an interesting, we should have more combinations of people who are not necessarily, you know, that need to sort of come together to understand one another. I mean, that just, you're never going to go wrong for trying to create alliances in general, right? Yeah, good for him.
Well, we've been on for a long time, and I'm just so grateful to be here with all of you. Someone said that someone in the Lemonheads chat said, I'm just so grateful to be here with you guys experiencing all of this. It makes a moment even bigger. I forget exactly who said it, but I read it as it was coming by. And I feel the same thing. Brandy P. Jones says, down your skin is shining tonight. That's because I was trying to get up to turn the AC on because it's not working on my phone. That's because I'm sweating, so thank you. But guys, I'm so happy that you guys are here. And what a moment. I mean, what a moment.
Thanks for inviting me in.
Absolutely.
I mean, history, we're watching history unfold every single day from here till November 5th. And with optimism and joy, man. It's just nice to meet you, Monique.
It's great.
Thank you guys. Make sure you guys in the chat, please hit the thumbs up. Please hit the thumbs up. And I'll tell you, Abe and Monique, as I say every day, go pre-order my book. I Once Was Lost. My Search for God in America is going to talk about all the things that we're talking about now. They're going to talk about gay and straight alliances in there. Everything that we are discussing is in this book. But I'm so happy that you guys are here, and all of our guests who are on today. Governor Deval Patrick, who was amazing to have him on. The State Senator Bobby Champion from Minnesota, who is now going to be the Lieutenant Governor if everything goes right. Chris Eliza, who is a veteran political commentator, and my former colleague. Monique Presley, a legal analyst, political commentator, and host of Make It Make Sense. A humorist and author, Abe Gerko, who joins us, as well as Mr. Ramos, who joined us earlier.
I just do a self plug for my book, Won't Be Silent. It's on Amazon right now.
Thank you all. Thank you, folks who are in the chat. I appreciate you joining us today. Hit the thumbs up. And we appreciate the Lemonhead, the Lemonation. I'm going to go feed my dogs now because they're really, really upset. Gus is like, where's my food? Where's my food? I need to eat. And then Barkley and Boomer are sitting waiting as well. Bye, everyone. Have a great evening. I will see you tomorrow, okay? And congratulations on such a great week so far. It's only Tuesday. Let's see what happens for the rest of the week. I'll see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock unless there's some breaking news. Bye.
Be well.